Hello, I'm David Hunt. My next guest is somebody that I've known far too long, which means he must be really old, but I'm much older than him. I'm older than everyone. It's Gavin Campbell. Yep, a lot of people are sitting up now going, Gavin Campbell, is it that DJ that we all know, that Melbourne DJ? Yes, it's that Gavin Campbell. A clubbing icon from the 80s and 90s, Remixer Nightclub in particular. I used to be there every Friday night. If you don't know anything about Remixer, Google it. You've got to find out about Remixer. We will be talking about it. And in later time, Poof he was involved in, which is still a club that's doing well. And I've only just found out as well that on a Saturday evening he plays the SB, and it sounds amazing, which is a famous pub here in Melbourne. A remixer and producer. He did something quite special, which we'll get talking about a little bit later, with Yothu Yindi's Treaty. Yep, he was the guy that remixed that, and the story behind that is incredible. And it's just been the 25th anniversary of that remix, and Gavin went out on the road with the band, and they did an extensive tour, and we'll talk about that as well. He's got his own record label, which is Remixer Records, named after Remixer, the nightclub. There's so much to talk about. Gavin Campbell, hello.
Hello, David. Thanks for inviting me in.
It's my pleasure. Now, let's go back, like as a kid.
I grew up in the western suburbs, and at St Paul's College, Altona North, was where I started secondary school, but I didn't finish there. They wanted me out.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So expelled?
What happened there was if you got a demerit, it was really bad. That was a really bad, you had to do something really bad to get one. And if you got 10 in your whole 6 years there, like when you got the 10th, you got expelled automatically. And I got 9 towards the end of year 9, third form. And the Dean of Discipline called me in and just said, and I said, look, Mum doesn't like this school anymore. She doesn't want me to be here. She thinks I'm getting too rough. So she's going to pull me out at the end of the year. So he went, okay. And so, it was a bit of a slack final term that year.
Yeah. Did you go anywhere else to finish?
I went to Geelong College.
Right, okay.
Which is obviously a really well-appointed school, very expensive and all. Mum fought with Dad tooth and nail to pay the fees.
So what happened when you left school? What sort of career path were you thinking?
I wanted to do drama. I wanted to act.
Okay.
That was my stick throughout school. I did all the drama classes and, all that kind of stuff. English literature was a big thing with me. And in fact, my English lit teacher was Rob Dorr, remember, who became the mayor?
Yeah.
But that's another story in itself. But he was a good English lit teacher. I didn't fancy my chances at HSC, which is what year 12 was at the time, because it was heavily based on exams. And I got nervous about that, so I left and did TOP, Tertiary Orientation Program at Preston Technical College, which was a TAFE course, and I went there specifically because they had drama, cinema and film studies with, is it Tom Ryan, the famous Australian film critic?
Oh, yeah.
He was one of the main lecturers for me. My connection with him and a couple of other drama teachers, I ended up going to Melbourne State College to study teaching, which had more cinema, more drama and all that kind of stuff. But that has now amalgamated with Melbourne Uni.
So where did the DJing start to come into play?
I started fooling around and being not very disciplined in my teacher's course. So I left and started hanging out in the band scene in St Kilda. Met a lot of musicians. Eventually,
could you play an instrument?
No, I'm not a musician. I've just not had that sort of discipline. I did try. I had a guitar, I had a piano.
Yeah.
Well, Mum hired a piano for a while, but then she realised it was a waste of money. Actually, do you know what? Can I tell a funny story?
Sure.
I was learning how to play the piano when I was about 13, 14, and I started just playing and not reading, like I learned how to play Climb Every Mountain.
Yeah.
I just thought, okay. And Mum brought a friend home one day who was a piano teacher, and she said, play for Margaret. So I did. I was playing, I was turning the page, but I wasn't reading it. And she knew because she said, Gavin, why don't you turn it up the right way? So she turned the thing up the right way, and I was so embarrassed. I ran out of the room, and I never touched the piano again.
That's a story. That is a funny story. That's a funny story.
She just turned it up. It'd be much more helpful, and I was turning the pages, pretending and everything.
So you're hanging around with bands and stuff.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I always digress. In the band scene, my very dear friend was Mark Seymour from Hunters, things like that. That's the sort of scene I was hanging out in. And
Oh, for those that don't know, Mark Seymour is...
Hunters and Collectors, the band. I actually knew Mark from uni, from Melbourne State College.
Oh, okay.
He was there doing final year, and one of his early girlfriends was in my year. So I connected with Mark, and we became very good friends and used to intellectualise about music and stuff. And it was his influence, and another person from Melbourne State College, Craig Pearce, who was a celebrated music journalist at the time, and he was my housemate. So learning about things, I became confident, and I said, "Oh, I think I'm going to DJ now." And I was good at that, so it just took over from acting.
Did you realise at that stage that you were gay, or were you already out in the scene?
Yeah, but I didn't like it, to be honest.
You didn't?
I wasn't happy about it, no. Well, I grew up in Altona. It was pretty rough there, and, you know, it was, puff does this, puff does that, you know. So I didn't really like being gay, to be honest, for quite a long time. Until I think in my 30s, I started to relax a bit more.
That long. Yep.
But I knew...
Yep.
I just wasn't very active. Like, I didn't go to gay clubs until maybe in my 30s.
Yep.
I did. I went to Mandate. We did go to them. I knew had gay mates and all that kind of stuff. It's just that I was just not identifying and not comfortable, so I didn't.
Yeah. So here you are, you're starting to DJ. What sort of gigs were you getting as a DJ?
Well, the very first gig I ever did was the opening night of my own club.
What club was that?
It was called Swelter.
Right.
It was October 1983. What actually happened was Shanine and I, who was the girl that I mentioned, who was Mark Seymour's ex, she and I would go out to bands all the time, and of course Craig would come with us because he'd write a review of the night. And we talked about doing a club night. Wouldn't that be cool? And Craig actually went and found a little room, Matilda's Tavern in Queen Street, Melbourne. He said, I found a room, I found a club. You know, I'll DJ. And he had music because he was getting it all the time to review it.
Yeah.
And so Shanine and I were like, I actually wanted to DJ, but I wasn't a DJ. So I did the door. And Shanine did the till. And Craig decided to go to Hong Kong for 2 weeks at one point. So I stepped in with his music and DJ'd.
Yep.
And I loved it. And then Craig shut the club. He decided, he split with his girlfriend and he wanted to move back to Hong Kong for good. And so he did that, and he shut the club, but he allowed Andrea, his girlfriend, and I to reopen it a few weeks later. So that's why I say my first gig was the opening of that. My first professional gig with my own music was when we reopened Swelter, that probably, I think it was late January. Yep. In 1984, we reopened it.
And what sort of music were you playing back then?
It was soul.
And which would have been rare, soul funk, for you know, like Australia, because Australian radio wasn't supporting that style of music.
You see, radio wasn't a concern. In terms of clubs and dance music and all that, we did, the only station that was important was Triple R.
Yep.
It was the only station that had soul shows on it and things like that. Everything else was just, you know, commercial. And you were at Triple R at the time, so you should know exactly what I mean, you know. It was we actually had radio shows on Triple R too. I would fill in for Paul Jackson on the disco show sometimes. Then I eventually had the disco show for a little while. You
were running your own club. How was it? Did
it was fantastic. Yep. What happened was it was a very slow build when Craig had it, and for the last few weeks, like, he had decided to close it and go. Then all of a sudden it started to
be popular.
Yeah, it was summer.
Yep.
You know, it was January.
Yep.
And I remember the first time over 200 people came, it was a real surprise, and everyone's like, and Andrea said to me, we should maybe ask Craig if we can continue this. And he said, no, I'm closing, I'm going. And that's why we had to reopen. But we reopened with a lot of people there, because I was quite a socialite in St Kilda, yeah. And Shanine too. Shanine could talk. It was an amazing reopening, and we had a great 2 years there. Everybody came, all the bands would come. You know, Seymour would be there all the time, and I'd have to say, look, leave the room because I'm going to play one of your songs, because, you know, like, they were very popular. Yep. But it's not cool to play the song of an artist that's in the room.
Standing there,
so can you go outside?
So 2 years you ran that, and why did you close it?
I'm going to call it here. I've not really said this in public, but the only 17 years I ran clubs for and DJ'd in them, the only time they ever really messed up and had to shut was because of interference from venues.
Yep.
and management in particular. Sometimes I'd be able to get to an owner, but not at Matilda's. I didn't have any access to owners of Matilda's, which was in that same building as the RACV in Queen Street. This guy messed up the second birthday badly. He didn't get a late licence, and we had a band with Kate Sobrano singing, a very special band for the night organised. We had to cancel the band because it was a nightmare. So we left there.
Right.
It all messed up.
Yep. And you were DJing other places by this stage?
At the time, I DJ'd at Subterrane. Chasers had, I think my first Chasers gig was at Function on a Friday night. Rungeon. Where else? I went to the Anglers Club. Remember, Max Poyser used to have the Anglers Club. It was gay.
Now, we've got to start talking about Razor. Razor was such a famous club here in Melbourne. Where did the idea come? Where did the concept, how did you find that venue?
While Swelter was happening, the other cool underground alternative club that played club music, a lot of African American produced music from the US. The only other venue like that was the Hardware Club. And when the Hardware Club shut just before we shut, we both opened and shut around the same time. And the main instigator of the Hardware Club, Jules Taylor, was a very close friend of mine. And Jules and I, we had drug problems at the time. We developed, you know, St Kilda was very druggy, the music scene, and we weren't doing too well. So we wanted to open a club together, because I had Swelter, she had Hardware, and now if we join forces and make some money and go to America and get away from drugs and drive from LA to New York, you know, that type of romantic idea. And at the time I was trying desperately not to be gay, so I was kind of a little bit with her as well, but scared of that. And so what happened was we decided to start looking at licenses that were similar to BB's, which was the club upstairs at the RACV from Swelter. She said, you know, they went down and to the Light Car Club, I believe, and did a club, but they failed. And I went, oh, really? It's St Kilda, Gav. So we went to the Light Car Club.
Now, explain to people where that
The Light Car Club was, it doesn't exist anymore as a building, but it was for car enthusiasts, and it was on Queen's Road, where the Oval, which is a kind of a cricket club and a tennis club.
Tennis club next door.
Yeah. There's two sports taking place there.
And on the other side, on the St Kilda Road side, it's where Commercial Road starts. Yes.
And the Chevron Hotel was there. So that's Roy Street, the little street.
And this building, you know, like as you said, it was a car club, was extraordinary. Was it timber?
No, it was brick.
It was brick? For some reason I think timber.
We had a 25th anniversary party in 2012, and there were lots of photos of the building, and I remember looking at it was an old Art Deco, like a mansion.
Yeah, and it had one whole room with pool tables. And
the pool room upstairs was so cool and authentic. Big, proper, full-size tables, and the balcony was unique because, you see, it was the Light Car Club of Australia, built to watch car races, or built because car races would happen around Albert Park Lake, but they used Queen's Road as part of the circuit. So the building had a very long balcony that stretched all the way along Queen's Road to watch races. And so that served us really well because we would pack the club, and then as the sun came up, people would just love still hanging on the balcony. So we had like 200 or 300 people on the balcony every Saturday morning.
It was a club that, how many years did it run for?
6 and a bit.
It seems a lot happened in that 6 and a bit years. It was the club in Melbourne, and it was before a lot of the major nightclubs started to open. And it was, and as you said, you know, like you've always had a connection with bands. I can remember In Excess used to come there after their gigs, you know, like they even spoke about it in interviews that
Michael
they did
loved
around
the club.
the world.
Michael was like there was a bunch of pop stars that were unofficial ambassadors for our club. They thought it was the bee's knees, and they knew it because they travelled. Crowded House, Kylie, Michael, you know, Gus Till and Ollie Olsen from Max Q. All kinds of people that were regular travellers overseas and stuff. They would like to brag about from their country, there's this really cool club, Razor, and therefore a lot of stars would come over expecting to see it.
There would often be a couple of hundred people out the front trying to get in at any given time.
It was always fun. You know, you had to sign. It was the light car club, so they had that sort of old-fashioned license where you could trade around the clock, but you had to be a member or the guest of a member. So it was a slow process. A lot of people thought that it was, so hard to get into. And it was.
Yep.
It definitely was. But there was also that slow process at the door, which added to the length of the queue. You know,
which made it sort of cooler in a way.
It made it cooler. Yeah. It made it cooler. But you know what? Most people got in. I don't really believe that people, when they say, I could never get in, because you just had to be friendly. You had to be, the right attitude and not look like you were going to cause trouble.
But it was great the fact that they would stand there looking, and
with
recognising
the illusion of it.
Yeah,
Fake it till you make it.
Which was fantastic. Now, I'm going to actually tell you something here that you might not be aware of.
Yeah.
Did you know that I bought one of Nirvana to your club one night?
No, really. Oh,
and
actually,
Dave Grohl.
Was it Dave Grohl?
Yeah.
Somebody told me they know that Dave Grohl was there one night, but I never knew this until recently. I think it was Aaron Jameson that told me.
Yeah.
So it was you that brought him.
Because Nirvana had just played down in St Kilda. I told it was through the record company that I was working for, and I said I was going there, and if you wanted to come to their tour manager. And of course, the lead singer, Kurt, we won't go into that. He went back to the hotel room. The tour manager came with Dave.
Oh, wow.
And we had a ball. We had a ball with them.
I think the international stars, they loved Razor because they weren't treated like they were overseas, celebrities. What I will say, and I know it sounds like I'm bragging here, but it was the beginning of the underground club scene in Melbourne, proper. There were other clubs that were like this, like Subterranean Hardware Club. What happened with Razor was, because of my connections with bands and stuff, we had all the music industry, networking, all the TV industry, film, advertising, fashion especially, because I had a lot of gay friends who were like Gavin Brown, who was designing brilliant stuff as Plain Jane, textiles and stuff like that. Why it was a hub for the underground and influential is because of all the people that came there to meet each other, and then of course we had the music downstairs, and Nick Cave playing pool, and Yothu would come,
Yeah, well, and the good thing is that if you were rock and roller, there were so many other areas to go, but down you were playing the coolest, hippest music.
So we could cater. It was an eclectic crowd, eclectic music, and eclectic networking too, like holistic.
What a success story. And you must be so proud looking back on it
now.
I
still can't believe how essential it was, I mean, Ross Wilson from Daddy Cool, he said to me one night, he was just like this. He said, Gavin, this place is incredible. Congratulations. It's the Renaissance. It's a Renaissance, this place.
Yeah.
And then you go, Renee, and run off to talk to her. It was very much like that, but it wasn't, we didn't all think we were cool,
Yeah.
We were just happening.
You started to get a little bit involved in doing some remixes. And there was one remix that one album, a single release, that you felt that you should do a remix for. What was it?
Well, it was Treaty by Yothu Yindi, because...
and it was on Mushroom?
On Mushroom. Well, you see, the thing is, what I was experiencing, I would read a lot of stuff from overseas about music and to find out what was going on, because I couldn't go anywhere in Melbourne to find out what was going on, except one place, maybe Central Station Records. And I would pop in there and I'd say, here's my list that I've read about. And they would say, well, here's the bunch that came in that we saved for you. And then we'd try to work it out to get as much of this good stuff I was reading about. So I started to think about doing the same thing as people did all over the world, which was create compilations of music that wasn't released in your country, but you knew your country wanted. So you'd get 10 tracks from around the world. And I started to plan that. And I went to New York in 1987, late 1987. I got there 3 days after the Paradise Garage closed. So it was all that type of crossover period and really exciting time. And so I started to license songs, and all the record companies found out and started to ask me if I wanted Razor. Sorry, I've missed the point. Razor Records was born out of the club, because that was a kind of a cool happening thing overseas. Michael Gudinski was the person that was the most successful in wooing me to his company.
And Michael Kadinsky, for those
from
who
Mushroom.
don't know, Mushroom Records.
Sorry, I should keep explaining. So yes, from Mushroom Records. He wanted me to record local music, dance music, but there wasn't a dance music scene. It was all licensing was my idea.
Yep.
So I did what he wanted because I thought, yeah, this is exciting. It was kind of a real shot in the arm, but still too early. There was no media support for local. So after making an album of local artists, I turned around to Michael and said, "You've got an Aboriginal band on your roster." "Oh, Yothu Yindi." And they kept saying, no, you can't remix them. We've made a couple of albums, you know, they're not interested in you, all that kind of stuff. But
And they hadn't been a huge success either, had they?
No, that's why.
Yep.
2 albums, people knew who they were,
Yep.
but they weren't on the radio.
No.
I said, well, let me hear their stuff. And I heard Treaty, it was on the second album, and I said, there's stuff in here that would be amazing in a trance track. I tried to make a trance song, because trance was huge at the time.
Yep.
The new genre, trance and progressive house, and we're too funky. It just turned out to be funky. And so we went with it. What happened in the studio we went with. It was an organic thing. And so, but we had to actually sneak the tapes out of the building.
Well, actually, you stole them.
We stole them.
Yeah. Because they wouldn't give them to you.
Yeah.
So you stole the Yothu Yindi track of
Yeah.
Treaty, you remixed it and brought it back. What
Brought
happened?
it back, finished and mastered and everything.
So did you think that maybe they would say, how
Yeah.
dare you?
You would never do it these days, would you? I mean, what I know
Well, I
now.
can't believe you did it then. You're like, good on you.
What happened was we did it. We had, there was a couple of people who were important within the Mushroom organisation who knew that I had the tapes.
Right. Okay.
They were good
so
mates.
you really hadn't stolen them. Yeah.
Well, the powers that be said no
Yep.
and didn't know we had the tapes.
Yep.
So it was very naughty.
Yep.
We took the tapes and secretly spent 3 months turning it into, we just knew this was a good idea, you
Yep.
know, like nothing was going to stop it from happening. When we finished it, it took us 3 months to have the guts to play it to anyone because we suddenly realised what we'd done. We were high on the idea, David.
But you could have been sued. Anything could have
We
happened.
could have, yeah. There's all sorts of things, and the Yolngu people that we basically disrespected by doing that were very understanding.
Yep.
And appreciative,
Yep.
and now they're grateful,
Yep.
and I'm grateful to them, and we have a great.
Come on, you haven't finished telling the story. Tell the
Where was
story
I
of
up
when you took it back to Mushroom.
All right. So what I did was I thought, oh, what am I going to do? How are we going to? And then at the end of that year, which was 1990, Michael Kadinsky had built a big home for himself in Toorak, and he had a big Christmas party, and he flew all the Mushroom staff from around Australia to Melbourne for this Christmas event, and all the festival people that worked with Mushroom. And everybody was quite drunk, and I had the song. I knew I was going to play it that night.
Yeah.
Because, you know, Michael's got to have lots of music, and he had a new stereo system that was pumped throughout the whole complex. And he told me about all this, so I thought, I know what I'm going to do. So I put it on a ceramic metal tape, took it to the party. When everyone was well drunk, I got Molly Meldrum, of all people, who was probably the most drunk person at the party. He was arguing with Michael, and I thought, yeah, Molly's the one to do this. So I told Molly what was on the tape, and he was like, and he just went straight over to the cassette deck, pulled Michael's music out, stuck it on, and he knew, and he turned it right up. And I had it on twice, one after the other, but by the time it finished, the room was twice as crowded, and everybody was just, what is that? It was so arresting. Everybody just came in, and I'll say it, but from that moment on, Monday morning, I went in and I said, okay, let's do the paperwork, because I was going to get a little bit of it for the label to self-fund, because Michael realised that he was just pouring too much money into this new dance music label. So this was a bid to be self-sufficient, which is why I did get the go-ahead from certain people to take the tapes.
Yep.
It was just a good idea all round.
And it was a sensation.
It was a sensation, but I didn't get any money from it in the end. They just laughed at me and they just said, I won't say what they said, but they told me to go away, and I'm like, what? That was the end of making music with Mushroom. We left on amicable terms. Should I be saying all this?
You've said it, and it's on these.
I've never said that before. You know, it was bittersweet. Yeah.
Okay, and the rest is history with the song. Did it go to number one?
No, it didn't. What happened was Australian radio wouldn't play it.
Oh, still?
They wouldn't play it, but it was a massive club hit.
Yep.
A whole year, huge overseas. Every country fell. It basically went top 5 in the clubs everywhere, including number 6 on the Billboard dance chart, which was a very hard thing to do.
It became a hit without commercial radio play.
It became a hit without radio, and radio only picked up on it. That's right, you asked if it charted. It went to number 11, but what happened was it went to number 1 in South Australia, but it was number 30-something in New South Wales that week.
Yep.
And so it kept doing this.
Yep.
It kept doing that like a VU meter all over the country for months and months and months. It was on the chart for 6 months.
Wow.
It went gold,
Yep.
but it just didn't have enough smart programmers around the country going, let's just do this.
Well, that was the problem with radio back then. They were only really following what was going on overseas, and this was such a left of centre.
It took them by surprise. It took us all by surprise, really. It even took us by surprise because, as I said, I was just expecting a trance rhythm with chanting, you know, repeating over and over, but we turned it into this funky jam, you know, so it took us by surprise as well once we got working on it.
25 years down the track, which was last year, you went out on the road with the band, Yothu Yindi, and toured quite extensively.
We decided to do a lot of remixes because it was popular again, because Australian festivals are huge, the whole scene. And so it became popular because it's a no-brainer that works outdoors in Australia. And we decided to do a mix for all the different types of markets. And they worked so well that Elliot Rothfield from Strawberry Fields, which is the first festival of the season. You know, it's a very cool festival right on the edge of New South Wales border inside Victoria. He contacted me and he said, Gavin, our crowd really loves a Yothu Yindi remix, you know, the electronic vibe. Do you think we can have a treaty moment? And so we figured out that in order to do it properly, we'd need this many people. And he said, oh, well, then you may as well headline the Saturday night and do an hour show. So we pulled together about 12 people, which included 5 original Yothu Yindi members, remixed a lot of their songs, and now we have an electronic version of Yothu Yindi that's called Yothu Yindi and the Treaty Project. And we did a lot of shows for 18 months. We played everywhere, from Hamer Hall to Blues Fest. We went to New Zealand for Watangi Festival, which is their treaty festival. And we've taken this year off. We're recording. Yedama, one of our young singers, he's in town this weekend to finish the vocals on a ballad. So it's not all dance and stuff. We're trying to, we want to keep the Yothu Yindi legacy alive and at the same time bring in new audiences. And I think we still need to make statements about treaty and to garner support for eventually when Australia has a referendum about, you know, the voice in the Constitution and stuff.
Is it on your label?
Yes.
It's on new Razor. Razor Records?
Yeah, the Yothu Yindi Treaty Project is all on Razor. So was Treaty, all the remixes. We licensed it from Mushroom. We have a great relationship now, Mushroom and myself and Erin. I'm working with them at the moment and I'm talking material.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What, remixing their stuff?
Well, we've just put out Hollywood. Robert Gooch, who is Filthy Lucre and one of the Filthy Lucre members, that's our production name. We've just remixed I'm Talking, and so I'm working with them all again.
It's non-stop. Your life is continuing on. You're still in demand as a DJ. You've got your record label. You've got the touring now that you do. You must be very proud of what you've achieved out of a world that people don't take seriously, a DJ world.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's funny you put it like that because I felt really successful when Razor was open. You know, that particular club, it was really exciting at the time as to what it was doing. And ever since then, I've just rolled on trying to stay relevant and managing to be relevant on and off and stuff. But yeah, I am proud. What I'm very proud of, and I get quite emotional, I teared up. I actually started to cry when I was being interviewed by Miff Warhurst on ABC one day. about how it feels to be working with this, and I'm starting to do it again. It's just really incredible to come from doing something that's not that exciting or important in the scheme of things, like DJing in clubs, to it evolving into this sort of thing, which is important.
Yeah.
Not just arts-wise, but culturally and politically.
Yeah. You should be very proud of what you've achieved as a DJ. Like you've taken, yes, there's the world famous DJs now, and they make so much money, but you've taken it to another level, haven't you? With
I'm different to them. Yes. So, sometimes I worry that, you know, some DJs can say, yeah, I'll have a couple of grand for that if you want me to play, and I don't really have that sort of power. I feel that my influence is undeniable, just because of, you know, creating clubs when there weren't clubs and giving a lot of other people a chance to develop their skills in a proper club. See, that for me, I think that's the whole key to why I'm still surviving as a DJ. I was like in a pressure cooker of learning and developing skills, and especially programming skills, which is why I'm good at the SB. I know how to program to all sorts of different people who are in a room at the same time. At 59 years old, I think I prefer to entertain rather than go into some underground club. I can pull things out at the SB. I can't get away with too much stuff they don't know, but I can pull out some interesting mixes of stuff they know, and they get all, you see them all, oh, I haven't heard this, but they love it.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's a buzz.
Gavin Campbell, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you today, and I've just loved following your life.
Thank you for having me, David. It's been great.
I'm David Hunt, and we'll see you again real soon.